The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is The Angry Chicken.
Welcome back, everyone. This is The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzerl. He's Willie Dillis Gregory. She's Jocelyn Moffat. And we got some Hearthstone to talk about. How you doing this week?
It's been a slow Hearthstone week, weirdly. I thought I was going to play tons and tons of Arena, but instead I found myself playing Miracle Rogue.
Okay, all right.
I mean, the Arena has been fun. I think I just burned myself out on it like the first 2 days. I played like 7 or 8 Arena runs. Really, like on the
That's a lot of Arena runs.
Yeah,
in one day.
Yeah,
especially if you're doing like well. You know, if you're having long runs.
I mean, I could do 7 or 8 Arena runs in like an hour, but
I had 111 and 112, but other than that, I got nothing over like 8 or something like that. But I also had some 1 wins and a few 2 and 3 wins too. I was messing around with all the classes, and I was also doing things like every new card, pick it, you know. So, and sometimes that could be amazing, and sometimes like the priest new cards not as good as I think we thought they were. Some other classes, like their new card is not that great, right? Mage has a pretty good one, but like Rogue kind of fell flat. It still ended up like, yeah, it got me a card, got me some information. It was still a 4-mana 4/3 in a very tempo based Arena game. So
I've also fallen back to ladder. Been just going back to the most unique thing in the world, even shaman.
Ooh, okay,
yeah,
it's real good right now.
It's phenomenal.
Really well.
I've just today, I think I have just from today's games, 70% win rate. Woo!
Nice. Yeah, Miracle Rogue for me has been doing really, really well. Just anything where you kind of take advantage of all these people playing control. And that's what Even Shaman kind of does as well. It just keeps reloading, and then just murders you. Also, I had some really good games with Hagatha with Even Shaman. Hagatha actually good.
I have more than once just today. I was sitting there just being like, oh, there's taunts. I just need like a lightning bolt or something. Oh, Hagatha. All right, we're good. We win the game.
Mm-hmm. Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt. You find all sorts of good stuff with her.
Yeah, it's been good, man. Freaking. What is it? Earth? I don't even remember anymore because I never put it in my deck. Is it Earth Shock, the 1 damage or silence?
Yeah.
Minion? Yeah.
Oh, the 1 damage and silence?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that thing randomly popping off of Hagatha has been saving my bacon. It's been great. Or you know what's also good? Like a 3rd and 4th hex. That also makes me feel really good.
Sure, yeah. Extra hexes, those are nice. There's also some AoE stuff you can find. And I found Bloodlust many times, and that's the one thing you cannot run in that deck with your. And even though you do spam the totems, sometimes you can't actually use them to kill anybody. So it's nice to find a little Bloodlust action with it.
Yeah. You've been running into the same situations. It sounds like I have been, where you have like your Murloc totem on board and they never killed it.
Yeah.
You've just been making totems and you're just like, wait, I've got a bunch of 0 and 1 attack minions. We need. What can we do here? I'm out of room. That's
actually one of the issues I was having with the deck, is because you keep pushing that button for 1 mana. Sometimes, you get to the later turns and you're like, I want to play like Serenite Chain Gang, but I can't get rid of any of these things. Or I want to put this Sea Giant down and there's no room. So, yeah. And like, that's one of the reasons why it runs the elemental buff, the +2/+2, that if it's on an elemental gives you an elemental card. So you don't actually run that many elementals in the deck. But sometimes you just need to buff a totem +2/+2, right?
Yeah, I almost
use it to do stuff.
It's pretty rare that I use. Oh my god, I'm blank. Earthen Might. It's very rare that I use Earthen Might.
That's the one
on an elemental. It's really nice when it lines up and you're able to, and you get a random elemental off of it. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. A lot of times you're just like, well, I guess this is going on a totem, or I guess this is going on a chain ganger.
Yeah, exactly. I most of the time I find myself putting them on totems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess what's the only elemental you run? Is it fire elemental, or are there any others?
There's also Fire Plume Phoenix.
Oh,
And fireflies, right?
And
Or
fire,
no, wait,
Oh,
not
what?
an even.
not
Sorry.
Fireflies.
Yep.
No.
Those
Yeah.
cost 1.
Oh, and,
Yeah.
and well, and the big one, which if it's a perfect scenario, it's kind of gross. If you have an Earthen Might in hand, is freaking Alakir, man. Alakir, see him play in Hearthstone again.
There you go. Yeah, with Alakir, you buff your corpse takers with, right? You give them Wind Fury and Divine
Yeah.
Shield.
Not if you're me. You always draw Alakir on like turn 2 or 3,
Sure.
and you forget about it, and you slam down your corpse taker on 4, and you're just like, wait, what
Yeah.
happened? Oh, right.
And you think it's awesome, and then it's not.
But you win anyway because it's a really good deck, and it doesn't live or die on corpse taker getting a freaking buff. So
My Miracle Rogue right now is also 71% win rate.
Nice.
I just found that it just kills people. Like people just die.
yep.
You're just like sitting there and you're kind of playing and you're playing and playing. You just deal a little incidental damage, and all of a sudden you look at your hand and you're like, I could deal like 28 out of hand right now.
It's a miracle.
Yay! Yeah. But that's the free 4/4s. People just spend so much time dealing with those, and then all of a sudden you just like Leroy the hell out of them. Also, I have been playing a lot because I now have Golden Edwin Van Cleef and
Ooh.
Golden Leroy.
When did that-
I'm like really close to having a full Golden Miracle Rogue deck. Right now.
When did that happen? Did you get him out of your golden pack?
No, I created an entirely Golden Test Gray main deck for Wild.
Oh wait,
And
so
part of that, yeah.
you spent the dust?
I just had all this dust, right? Because so I kind of went nuts.
Wait, this sounds like you're making excuses. Like this is the kind of excuse that someone makes when they've recently robbed a bank and you're inquiring about the really nice Cadillac sitting in the.
They're like, look, the
Like, I
money
just-
was just right there, okay?
It's just laying around.
I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, I did pull out a gun and tell them to give it to me, but it was right there.
He walked into Team 5 headquarters like, put all the dust in the bag. Put it in the bag.
So what? I mean, look, I had all this dust. I got every legendary from Witchwood, so there was no need for me to craft anything basically. Because I just got, I got like really lucky with my last pack opening, and then now they're giving us all this free dust, and I just looked down and I was like, man, I got like 6,000 dust right here, and I've never had an all golden deck. I've never used the golden coin before, so I started figuring out like what decks were close, and then I realized what deck would be the best for all of them. And it's the one that generates a bunch of cards from your deck. Yeah. So, yep. All golden Test Gray main deck.
Well, I
Approve.
yeah, respect, man. Mad respect. That's you really went in on that.
Yeah, but it means that I'm pretty close to an all golden Miracle deck now, because all I'm really missing is Faldori Striders and Gadget and Auctioneers. Everything else is pretty much the
Ooh.
same.
Yeah, you should definitely make a golden gadgets and like because
I'm doing it.
They always come back around, right? Like that's a golden
Yeah.
you'll get to use again.
Yeah, exactly. But I think everything else. Oh, I need golden preps. Damn, those are epics too.
So good.
Ugh.
So much.
I
Epic.
have a question for you guys, because you both said that you're playing on ladder right now around 70% win rates. Have you been seeing a lot of odd paladin? Because I feel like that's all I queue into, and then I'm just like table flip, lose, like I can't get a win at all.
Last week, yes. This week, or
Yeah.
like the beginning of this week, no. I think they've all ranked above me.
'Cause I was gonna say, like, I queued in because I was playing Recruit Hunter like a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was having a really good time with it, and I was winning a lot. Everything was great, and then I got super super busy, and had to go away for a week, and then DreamHack was this weekend, so I've been super busy. I get back on ladder again, and I had literally 5 games in a row against Odd Paladin, and I lost every single one of them, and I was just like, I hate this so much.
Well, the Miracle Rogue actually does okay against it because Fan of Knives is in the deck. And sometimes, yeah, like they're and also now we've got things like Hench Clan Thug and stuff like that. We're actually putting pressure on the board.
Right.
But yeah, it is still a deck that piles up the pressure real quick, and you need to answer it, or yeah, you'll die.
Yeah, and it's even like, I might answer it once or twice, but then they just keep coming.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, all
Because
right.
all they gotta do
well,
is push a
all right
button. That's it.
then. Yeah.
I would have you tried Token Druid? Are you like do you have against it on principle or?
No, I haven't actually tried Token Druid. And I think Druid's is fine. I'm not against anything in principle except for freaking Warlocks. Warlocks is the only thing that I'm just like, no.
You're in good company in that regard.
Yeah. So, but no, I think Token Druid is a really interesting deck, and I think even like I'm not even against Odd Paladin necessarily. It's just that I'm at the point now where I have my Golden Paladin already, so I'm like, I should be playing other things.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat.
I think probably, but even Shaman would probably be fine.
Even Shaman matches up pretty well against it for sure.
Yeah,
I'm actually trying to think of like what the Odd Paladin. So it is still a very popular deck. And there's a bunch of different versions being played. But let me look at their actual matchups because I feel like I never have that much of a problem.
I have it open right now.
Really, they're only like really, really bad matchups tend to be against Warriors. Just because they have so many whirlwind effects, right, and taunts and stuff. So.
Yeah, their matchup against Warrior is very poor, but it's also very poor against Control Priest, against Quest Priest, Token Druid, and that's kind of about it. Control Priest has really fallen off, though. It doesn't have a lot of other particularly favored matchups, so I would struggle to suggest it as a ladder deck. It's pretty solid against Shaman and Warlock in addition to the Paladin, but like it's getting rolled over by basically every Druid deck in existence right now, and there's a lot of Druids being played.
Yeah. Yeah, Token just punishes it because of Spreading Plague, right? So
yeah.
The Token Druid I think is a good deck right now, but I found it boring to play.
Yeah. Yeah, even
I was like, okay, make a big board. Oh, they kill it. Okay, make another big board, and
Yeah, I would
little
say,
more action.
I would say give even Shaman a try. It's I mean, according to HS Replay, the stats I'm looking at, it technically is favored towards the Paladin, but it's very close. You're gonna have to make them try for that win.
Mm-hmm.
And even Warlock apparently has a really good matchup. So
yeah,
you said no Warlocks, but that's not the bad Warlock.
Actually, yeah. How do you feel about being a hipster,
I have been playing some Even Warlock, and I find like Even Warlock is frustrating to play against when they do that whole Mountain Giant turn 3 thing, and that just feels broken and unfair. So I feel like I don't want to play things that are broken and unfair.
You have no choice, Jocelyn. This is Hearthstone.
I know. It's the same reason why I don't have Golden Shaman yet, because when they were doing that whole like Tunnel Trog Totem Golem thing, I was like, no, that's broken and unfair. I'm not going to play it because apparently I'm real dumb.
You know, when you, it's all about.
I just need to like embrace the broken and.
Yeah. It's all about semantics, because when you say broken and unfair, what I'm hearing is draw dependent.
Fair enough.
No, I think
which isn't nearly as like. Draw dependent isn't nearly as bad of a drawback for a Warlock with a 1-mana hero power.
Oh, exactly. But that those Mountain Giants can still be pretty far in your deck. So
sometimes.
Yeah. I would say keep going with the Even Warlock, because then you get to claim hipster status. Because it's not the cool Warlock that everybody's playing.
I don't know, man. Key block's really fallen off. Even Warlock definitely is more or gaining in popularity, maybe. Put it that way.
Yeah. That's true. I still see that weapon come out though, and I still shake my fist at the sky. But whatever the case is, let's go ahead and move on into this week's Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
Global game votes are in. Have you gone and, like me, realized that there's a drop-down menu and that there are a lot of countries with with people that got voted into play? I didn't realize this many players were involved in this tournament. I
believe it's 48 teams.
I believe you are correct.
Damn.
But I'm in the U.S., so I'm curious about the U.S., and most of the players I voted for made it in.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is that I voted for for the Canadian team, but I know I voted purple because, come on, obviously I voted purple. And our anchor is Monsanto, and he's amazing. So I can't remember. I don't think I voted for Jordude, and I don't think I voted for Doc Pone, but we had a pretty stacked potential team. So I was kind of like, I remember when I was doing my voting, I was like, I'd really be fine with any of these choices.
Yeah, U.S. is pretty
Yeah, look
stacked
good.
too.
Everybody's pretty stacked. I'm kind of
Yeah.
like clicking through all the teams. I'm like, okay, I actually know who a lot of these people are now.
Yeah, well, it's because this year they did it, and I think this is why it's going to be such an interesting competition. Is it was all based on HCT points, so whoever had the highest amount of HCT points in a region was the anchor, and so there was no voting when it came to the anchor. That person was just automatically in, and then it was like the top. I want to say everybody got about like 6-ish players to vote for, and then 3 of those 6 made it onto the team. So it's like there was some element of like internet personality, popularity type stuff and like name recognition, but the original pool of players was all based off HCT points. So these are the players who are doing the best right now, or I guess in HCT season 1. So
Sure.
there's a lot of really, really strong representation from a lot of countries. So yeah, there's a lot of teams like through mostly, at least for me, Europe and the Americas. I'm not as familiar with a lot of the APAC players, but for Europe and the Americas, there's like 2, if not 3 or 4 people on each team that I'm like really familiar with and have been performing very well at all of our HCT tour stops. So it's going to be an awesome tournament to watch.
A fun one to watch. Yeah.
I think we just have another excuse to invite Terrence back on the show because he's going to go and rep US, and we haven't had him on since he kicked ass at DreamHack 2 DreamHack Austins ago. So, Terrence,
yeah,
if
you
you're
guys have
listening,
Muzzy and Just Saying and Frozen too. You guys have a really stacked team.
Frozen's like, if they made Frozen jerseys, I would have one. Like, I always pull for Frozen. So, I'm stoked that he got voted in. So, Joss, I'm surprised you're awake. You had to work DreamHack Summer over the weekend.
I did, and so I absolutely love everything I've been doing for DreamHack aside from waking up on EU hours, because I was literally working from 3 a.m. until 3 p.m. and then dying.
That's pretty nuts.
But yeah, it was a really good tournament this weekend. Much smoother than Austin. No power outages.
Oh, wow. Apparently Europe knows how to do DreamHacks just a little bit better than America, huh? All right.
Wait, so you mean
had practice.
You mean all the power going down makes it an easier and more smooth experience?
Exactly.
Well, of the top 4 players, I recognize the name of one. And it's a name we haven't mentioned in a while, and that's Green Sheep.
Yeah, Green Sheep, yeah. Who is also playing in the HGG, by the way, for UK.
Yep.
But yeah, I didn't know any of these other people. Well, no, Faley I've heard of.
You say not Faley, because Faley we've talked about a lot lately because he also did really well. Like he just missed I think he came 5th in the playoffs, and then he also he'd had some really high finishes and came 2nd, I think, in one of the HCT tour stops. Plus, he also did really, really well in that wild tournament that they held. So I feel like Faley has had some pretty high finishes in a lot of the stuff that was going on in season 1. So I was glad that he got as high as he did. I was so sad that he got knocked out. I wanted him in the final.
Looks like it was HCT Oslo back in March, which I did not watch, so that's why I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, so Faley and Green Sheep, but there were a lot of good players that kind of big name players that got knocked out in the kind of round of 16. So Show, Muzzy, Pool 8, who actually went undefeated in the Swiss, Boar Control, those were our big top 16 names that we're kind of aware of. Oh, Casey, I guess too, is another one that most people are aware of. And they all got knocked out in the round of 16. So and then we had Aka Wonder, who got knocked out in the round of 8. So yeah, a lot of the big name players got knocked out pretty early, and then we had the defending champion who went 0-3 in Swiss and then stopped playing. So rip Orange.
Yeah, but Fury Hunter and Penna Donnie, who were the top 2 players, looks like they're weekly tournament grinders. Looking at their just what I can find about them, which is pretty much just means their achievements page on Liquipedia. That's about the only thing I can find on these players.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of Strivewire tournaments on there and stuff, right?
Yeah,
and some DreamHack finishes as well.
Ton of those Strivewire ones, yeah, and DreamHack as well. But it looks like at least for Fury Hunter, side events on DreamHack.
He's got some stuff up here where it's It's like Strive Wires Mega Cash, $55 cash out or whatever. And then you look at what he got for DreamHack, and you're like, $5,000.
Yep.
All right.
Congratulations. That's
Moving on
An
up.
upgrade for sure.
That's got to be awesome. It's got to feel so freaking good. But yeah, so 15 HCT points for the winner, 12 for the runner-up, and 10 for Green Sheep and Faley.
Mm-hmm. Which is really starting to actually matter, not only for, HCT standings, but also for the team standings, right? So, I mean, Fade to Karma, Board Control had a pretty good finish at 16th, but then like some of the other teams that are kind of like up and comers, like Copenhagen Flames had 2 players that went to top 8. So it's the team standings it's starting to create a really interesting dialogue. So I'm glad that there's like this extra layer now that we're talking about when we're talking about competitive Hearthstone, is like, where are all these teams finishing? Because Fate to Karma was like way ahead of everybody else in team standings. And wouldn't it be great if there was a team standings page we could all go to, Blizzard, instead of trying to do the math on our own? But Fade to Karma was doing really, really well. And I think Tempo Storm is second as far as I know. So having Muzzy have that high finish too, it's, yeah.
Yeah, because the prize money, I believe, ends at 8th place, but the HCT points are divvied out all the way down to 32nd.
Yes.
So it does, as you mentioned, it does affect those team standings going pretty far down. Even though there's, if you're between 17 and 32, you're only getting 4 points, but it's still 4 points.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even then, like if you go all the way down to 32nd, like Fade to Karma had 2 people that placed in the top 32 and then 1 person in the top 16. So, they're 3 players getting points out of 1 event is really, really good.
Yeah, big chunk of the points pie going to the same team. I'm just curious, Jocelyn, when you're working 3 a.m. to 3 p.m., do you eat? Like, how does that just screw the sleep schedule? I'm curious about the eating schedule.
I always find this really funny because one of the biggest things that people complain about with DreamHacks is like, oh man, we have to wait like 15 minutes in between rounds. I'm like, guys, that's when I go like make my coffee and try to shove food in my face. Like, these are not long breaks for players or for workers, just FYI.
That's how I felt watching the mid-season brawl for Heroes this week. I'm like, why are there such long breaks between games? Go!
Some of us have to pee, Garrett.
Listen, I peed twice during one of the breaks. It was ridiculous. All right, well, let's move on and do one of my favorite things in the world, which is speculate. I love speculating. This isn't necessarily news, but this is the best place to keep it, which is, when are we getting an expansion announcement? And Jocelyn, you mentioned it today we have a little private Slack that the 3 of us use to kind of plan the show, and you're like, "Ooh, we should be getting an announcement soon." And I took that as
this is what we should talk about for the majority of news today.
To go and but I haven't done this. I went and I analyzed the announcement date and the release date of every single summer Hearthstone release we've ever gotten. And because I honestly, in my head, I was like, wait, I don't really know what the trend is for our summer Hearthstone releases. So I hope everyone's ready for a Hearthstone history lesson. Because I went back and looked up all this stuff. So Curse of Naxxramas was announced April 11th, 2014. If you wanted a reminder of a game, if you're like me, that you think is still new, of how long it's actually been out and how old you are. But Curse of Naxxramas was not only our first addition to Hearthstone after its release, but it was our first kind of summer release or addition to the game. So it was announced on April 11th and then released on July 22nd of that same year. So that was the longest amount of time from an announcement to a release. I think we've
month and a half or whatever.
I think we've ever
2.5 months. Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Almost 3.
But I think that kind of makes sense because that was the
Like
first
3 months,
release, right? Like, that was the first big announcement. Like, I'm sure they were super excited about it, and we haven't had that long of a window from announcement to release since, right? So
this is why the whole Nax out joke was so big on Twitch, because it took so friggin' long for them to finally get the damn thing out.
Yeah, I mean, looking at like Blizzard overall, though, that's more of an old school Blizzard announcement and then release, or like a box copy type of thing, because we got the announcement for the next Warcraft expansions date a couple months back already, so that we're waiting longer than 3 months from the actual date to getting it, but that's a slightly different product. I think it was League of Explorers, wasn't it? That they announced it at BlizzCon, and then it came out the next week, and that kind of ushered in, I would say, our more modern Hearthstone turnaround, which is usually at most a month now.
And I feel like they do that more so because they release all the cards ahead of time, and they have that like 2 to 3 weeks of card release schedule that they have to kind of build into an announcement. So I feel like this is probably the way that things are going to go, is, about 3 to 4 weeks from announcement to release.
I think so as well, because that's certainly what started to happen the following year after Naxxramas. We got the announcement of TGT, the Grand Tournament, on July 22nd, and then it released on August 24th. So damn near a month in between the announcement and the release. And then the following year was Karazhan, that was announced on July 25th, and then it was released on August 11th. And then last year was Knights of the Frozen Throne, in case you somehow forgot. That was supposed to be announced on July 6th. It was leaked a day early, if you remember that. The Hearthstone Chinese website was updated with the Knights of the Frozen Throne logo.
Yeah. And that should be closer to what we're looking at as far as release schedules now, right? Because that's when they started. That was the first year that they were like on this 3-a-year thing, right?
Yeah.
So I would look at that and say we'll probably get something similar, which means we're a couple weeks away still from any announcements.
Yeah. So TGT and Karazhan were pretty much the same, like announced right around the same time and released. Well, I guess Karazhan released actually a little bit earlier. But yeah, you're right. I think we should look to Frozen Throne. So we'll probably be seeing an announcement in 2 to 3 weeks.
And what do we have to go on right now? Still just a little
That's
picture?
what I was just looking.
Still just
I think
that little picture.
So it's the kind of purpley looking thing.
I'm trying to find the image myself. I wish I
it looks like the gates of those ethereal dudes.
It looks like an ethereal portal.
That's right. We're gonna get ethereal stuff. Yes.
Which is totally cool. I'm very excited because ethereals are awesome. So.
Yeah.
What do you think? Will be like transmogging stuff?
putting things in void storage.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, void storage. Woo!
Oh man, that's the thing that Hearthstone's been missing is void storage.
I want to transmog.
But it could be kind of Nether Stormy, which would be neat. So if you guys, played Burning Crusade in Warcraft, then there was a whole like purple zone, and there were these like big domes of like different environments within this like kind of stony ruined zone.
It looked like a Trapper Keeper from the 90s. It was highlight like purple and pink everything, and then it was rad looking for the time. I've gone back since, and my mind definitely updates the graphics a little more than it actually looks. It looks better in my head, is what I'm trying to say. But I think that if that's the direction they're going with the expansion, bring it on. I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm. That was also where Kael'thas was at Tempest Keep, so there's a lot of like Blood Elf stuff out in Netherstorm. So I feel like Netherstorm would actually probably be a pretty cool expansion, just because there's so many different facets from Warcraft in that zone. So if that is the way that they're taking it, plus ethereals, yay! So I think it could be really cool.
You're making me realize we don't have a Kael'thas card, do we?
No, we don't.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that'd be pretty rad if it was a. Ooh. He would have to do something with like gravity laps where he makes a float or something. Oh, flying cards confirmed. It's going to finally happen.
We also need like Ashes of Alar that they say is in packs, but really isn't.
Oh my God. We still haven't gotten loot cards in Hearthstone. Everyone assumed that was going to be a thing when Hearthstone was announced because we were all still playing the TCG at the time, and it never happened. And I'm not at this point. No. I don't think it ever is.
I don't think it will either, because the loot cards made a lot of sense for the WoW TCG because it was just supporting this one game, WoW, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now Hearthstone, I think, is they want to be totally separate.
I just want to hear Kael'thas go, "Your cards are upside down." It just makes your whole. All it does is turn your hand upside down. That's the only thing it does. So you can't see the mana cost or the name of the card unless you hover over it. You're just looking at attack and and health values.
Help.
And maybe the bottom of
Odd-
the card text.
Odd Trev in the chat room saying the biodomes. That's what I was talking about, the biodomes.
Oh, there
Could
you
not
go.
remember the word.
I
The
was-
big domey things with the environments in them. Biodomes.
You just got to think about that wonderful 90s movie. Who was in that? Pauly Shore was in that, wasn't he?
Yes.
One of the Baldwins. I don't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's at least 3 dungeons in Tempest Keep to choose from for themes. There's
Yeah.
Alcatraz is in there, so you could have a lot of legendaries based on the bosses in there, and yeah, there's a lot to pull from that one zone. So could be neat, but I think definitely whether it's Netherstorm or not, I think it's definitely void and ethereal based. So
if they did put flying in Hearthstone, how would it work, do you think? Do you think it would just be that other minions can't attack flying minions? So like you'd have to kill them with spells, and you'd have to kill them with other flying minions?
I mean, I would think it'd be a mixture of what we know from Hearthstone and what we know from Magic, right? So it would be, you would need another flying minion to attack another flying minion, or something. So in Magic, you have reach.
Right.
You have a keyword called reach.
Or a creature with reach. Yeah, exactly.
But in
so like Elven Archer, is that what you mean by reach? Like a targetable?
No,
Well,
there's
yeah,
literally
ability?
cards in Magic that have a keyword reach, which means they can defend against flying creatures. That's literally all it is. They actually still fight body to body.
Yeah.
But like obviously, yeah, like a battle cry would be able to hit a flyer. A spell would be able to hit a flyer. Just you'd be able to fly. Like you'd be able to like attack whatever, and the other guy wouldn't be able to attack your flying minion with their like a Boulder Fist Ogre wouldn't be able to hit it. Right?
I think the big thing would be ignoring taunt.
You think
I was
it
going to
would
say,
ignore
so is
taunt
that the
as well?
thing? Would they be able to fly over taunt minions?
Sure. I mean, if they're not flyers, yeah.
Right.
Unless you have a flying taunt minion.
Oh, flying taunt would be like the ultimate defensive minion then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
but it's just because it's weird
so
in
would minions on the ground be able to go underneath a flying taunt?
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Flyers can defend ground creatures.
Okay.
You have the high ground. You have the advantage.
Yeah,
But,
they all
like,
have
if you have
McGregor
flying,
beards.
your minion would be understated for its cost if it had like obviously.
Typically, yes. At least that's the way they're balanced in Magic. But yeah, it's something
I could work, man.
I could see coming. It would be cool. Like again, if we're tying this into maybe just a Tempest Keep type of thing, maybe instead of having minions that inherently have flying, you have some type of new effect like Gravity Lapse, where you can give that ability to minions.
Sure.
Oh, that would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Creating.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like giving minions echo. Sure.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
Also effects that ground flying minions. Also like spells that only hit flyers. Like there's all sorts of stuff you can do with it. I think it would be really cool.
Yep. I'm still just holding out hope to see any of the cards like what we're seeing in Arena right now that do something, find you a card and put it on the top of your deck. I want to see that in Standard.
Or that too, for sure. Yes.
Please and thank you. It's so freaking cool. It's such a good design. But yeah, so 2 to 3 weeks is the TLDR on that. We're assuming we're gonna know what the next expansion is relatively soon.
And then
I
we'll
kinda
probably
feel like I
actually
still have-
see it in August.
Okay, yeah. And I still feel like I have a lot of Witchwood to explore, which is weird. I usually don't feel like this at this point.
Well, we're
I
coming
think
off.
it's because we had those pretty significant meta-changing nerfs that took a while to hit, and then so it's like because of where they hit during the course of the expansion, it almost felt like we finally got Witchwood with those nerfs as opposed to when it actually launched. Like I feel like that's when the expansion really hit, because that's when we started to see the meta diversity not only on ladder but also in tournaments. And so now I feel like we're playing Witchwood. I felt like we weren't playing Witchwood for the first like 6 weeks or more.
Sure. We were still playing kobolds and stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like we had talked forever about doing bans for the next season of the DHL, and then this nerfs came along, and I'm like, do we need them anymore? But we talked about doing them. I guess we'll still do them, but it was just kind of like odd timing because it seems so necessary to just say like, okay, no Void Lords or whatever. And
you mean specific card bans?
Yeah, card bans. Yeah. That's what we're gonna do this coming season. It'll just be like one card for each class. It'll just kind of spice things up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's different from ladder. But it all of a sudden seemed less necessary because they did a really good job with these nerfs.
Do they have to be class cards, or can we like ban Gen and Baku?
There are gonna be. You'll see. I'll show you guys all this stuff. There's gonna be like literally for the entire season one class card, and then there's gonna be 2 neutral cards banned as well.
Well, before we move into strategy, we're talking Recruit Hunter this week, by the way. We have a new sponsor to thank on today's show. It's a new meal kit delivery service, and it's called Green Chef. And if you're unfamiliar, Green Chef is the first USDA-certified organic meal kit delivery service that includes, well, everything you need to cook delicious gourmet meals, and you can feel good about it. So again, if you're unfamiliar, the way it works is very similar to our other meal kit delivery service sponsor, HelloFresh. You get a box, it shows up right to your door. What's different about Green Chef is that they send premium organic ingredients and very imaginative recipes, and it's handpicked and it's delivered right to your door. And the big thing is that there's something for everyone. The meal plans are very varied. Can I say that? Does that make sense?
Very varied.
Very varied. Yeah. So they've got paleo, vegan, vegetarian, keto, gluten-free, omnivore, or the one I'm very excited about, carnivore.
I feel like carnivore would probably be pretty keto friendly too. We pretty much eat meat and cheese.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, you can go to greenchef.us/TAC and find out for yourself, Jocelyn.
I would love to, Garrett. I'm really excited that they do things like keto and paleo, because those are some, we've been doing keto since January, and I feel like there's a lot of people I know now that are doing keto and paleo and these kind of not necessarily fringe diets, but they're definitely newer than vegetarian. So it's nice to see a varied meal plan in things like this, because it's the reason that I can't do other meal plan programs is because most of the stuff that they include, I can't actually eat. So.
Yeah, I'm not on that diet, but as you are the only person I know that's on it, and it's the first time I've ever heard of it, I'm sure if I was on it, it sure would be convenient that it's offered by Green Chef. But the other
this is the reason I don't get on those plans, by the way, is because it's too friggin' hard. But if I could just order boxes of food that already were that,
right? And you know that it's approved for the diet,
viable. Yeah,
it's great.
30 pounds down, guys.
So
it works, huh?
Yep.
All right.
Oh yeah, it totally works.
And the meal plans aren't the only thing that's diverse. So is the array of recipes. It ranges from global cuisine to classic comfort foods, and they all have the Green Chef signature touch. And my favorite thing, as always, is how convenient it is. You can let Green Chef do the meal planning. You don't have to go and grocery shop. You don't have to go with your long list of extremely obscure ingredients because you want to cook something that is unique but also good for you. Yeah, it takes care of your prep week after week. So go check them out. They have a special offer for Angry Chicken listeners. You can get $50 off of your first box of Green Chef by going to greenchef.us/TAC. Again, it's a .us domain. Go to greenchef.us/TAC for $50 off your first box of Green Chef. We thank them for supporting the show, and we thank you for going to that URL, letting them know we sent you. Now, let's talk about that Recruit Hunter.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
So we hinted at Recruit Hunter a little bit last week when we had Zale on, or Zale, which I realize he referred to himself as. Have we just been pronouncing Zale wrong?
No, he actually talked about this on the most recent Omni Slasher. I think it was Omni Slash. He was like, "Yeah, it's a made up word. You can say it however you like."
Oh my God, man after my own heart. Oh
yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
He's like, I think it's I remember they had this conversation. They're like, "Well, how would you say it?" He's like, whatever." He literally didn't care.
So I feel about everything in Blizzard games. Yarel is in Heroes right now, and everyone's like, "That's not how you say it," and I'm just like, "It doesn't matter. It's fake."
Yeah.
How are you supposed to say it then?
Exist.
I don't know. Some people think it's Erel, which I would argue is very fantasy sounding.
Yeah, but still sounds wrong.
It doesn't matter. It's fake.
Wrong.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a fake name for a fake character that doesn't exist. Say it how you want. I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you don't say Earl, because that's just weird. Anyways, to the Recruit Hunter. This deck is bonkers. This is one of the coolest decks I have played in a very long time. And frankly, I'm surprised I didn't think about it. I was messaging both of you like, "Hey guys, what are we doing for strategy today? What are we doing?" And Dill's like, "What about Recruit Hunter?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, duh. The thing we talked about last week but didn't really detail. Why don't we cover that?" So I have since switched over to Even Shaman to just try and climb the ladder a little quicker. But That being said, this deck has a phenomenal win rate right now if you look at sites that are tracking stats. And I don't think it's that difficult to learn. I'm certainly still making some, I'm sure what some people would think are pretty obvious misplays with it from time to time, but the basic concept of it is pretty easy to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it's a deck with a giant power spike around turn 6, and that's the idea here. So you play some stuff at the beginning to try not to be dead, and then you put a Seeping Oozling on the board, and suddenly you're just ramming and jamming 8-drops and charging Devil Sores and all this kind of stuff. So it's just like it's really cool to be able to use the Seeping Oozling to do something cool. It's really cool to use a Silver Vanguard to do something cool. It's like, and then we got King Crush in a friggin' deck, and it's actually good. So again, I think it's pretty easy to tell what it's trying to do once you kind of do it a few times. But I remember the first time I was playing it, I was just kind of like wondering when I was going to feel like I was doing powerful things. And then once you do it, you're like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah, it was really nice to see a use for Lone Champion too, because that's a one of in this deck, and it's a really interesting card. And I mean, I don't think we reviewed it very high because it's so situational, but it works really well in this deck.
It's an arena card most of the time, but yeah, it does something that this deck really needs, which is just stop you from hitting my face for a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. And you very rarely have a ton of minions in the early game. Like, you might have one, and generally your opponent's going to be killing it off every turn, so you're not playing a flood the board playstyle. So Lone Champion is actually a really helpful tool in this deck.
Right. The only sub 3 mana minions that are being run in this deck are 2 Fireflies, which obviously add 2 more 1/2s into your hand. But and in addition to that is Keleseth. That is it. So if you're dropping Fireflies, they're going to die. If you're dropping Keleseth, he's going to die. So the Lone Champion very typically finds his taunt and finds his Divine Shield.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like being able to play a third Tar Creeper is kind of how I think of it, because you just, it's just a minion that just stops all the action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and that's because of the way this deck is set up, with the one exception of Stitch Tracker. That's what you're looking to do on turn 3, is to just stall, and Lone Champion gives you one more way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Chat room right now is talking about the delay secret package, and we were kind of going back and forth on this, is like which version we should talk about, and all three of us have been playing the Keleseth version more so than the secret version, but I do like the secret version, although you've got to admit that getting a Keleseth buff down and then recruiting stuff that is, buffed up even bigger is pretty crazy and pretty powerful.
I think they both have their, like, both versions of this deck kind of rely on luck to a certain degree. The secret one is less obvious, but I think the order in which you draw your secrets is a bit of the luck of the power of that deck, and finding the Keleseth is the obvious luck in playing the version that we're talking about right now.
But this, I don't know, I feel like this deck just plays smoother because you're putting things like Tar Creepers on the board and stuff like that early on. And like you said, the secret package sometimes doesn't line up right with what they're playing, right? Sometimes you draw, your explosive traps against just a deck that's running a bunch of big stuff, right? Sometimes you're drawing freezing traps against a bunch of flood decks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not great. Obviously, 5 mana for 4 3/3s is really good, and the main reason why you'd consider playing the other version. Yeah. But it's just, I found that this version played a little more consistently.
The one thing that I feel like I miss not having secrets in this deck, because, and again, like I mentioned off the top of the show, I've been facing literally only odd paladins, so I do 100% miss the extra explosive trap board clear for sure. But yeah, Keleseth also is powerful, and like you said, consistent, because even if you don't get Keleseth down, your deck is still pretty good. Like, if you don't get secrets or don't get your spellstones, then like there's just more cards that have to work together in that deck in that case. So
yeah, it's just this added boost to your deck.
Yeah.
You don't have to have Keleseth. I've won multiple games where he was nowhere to be found, or showed up on like turn 12.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between pulling out a 9/9 King Crush and an 8/8 King Crush is not that huge. It's fine. You can go either way.
That being said, turn 2 or turn 1 with Coin Keleseth is pretty nasty when you start putting down buffed Tar Creepers and Lone Champions in your early turns.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so but overall, I dig it. It is draw dependent, and again, I'm not even talking about the Keliseth here. I'm mostly talking about there's not a lot of death rattles in the deck. It is by design so that you get powerful death rattles onto your Sleeping Oozling. But if you draw your Vanguard, if you draw your Katharina,
you have to draw both of them though before you draw the Oozling, which doesn't happen that often.
Again, you're not me, Dills. You're not me. It is having to
trust
be.
me, I have all the things go against me as well, but that's only going to happen statistically, like once every, I don't know, like 25 games, something like that. I mean, that's pretty rare.
Yeah. Since it's being asked in chat room, what would you replace Shaw with? Because there's nothing else that does his job.
I would just put in a Dire Frenzy.
Ooh,
I think
like
a single
that.
Dire Frenzy is just pretty good in this deck because, like we talked about, sometimes you recruit all your stuff and then you got no more stuff to recruit, and Dire Frenzy takes care of that problem.
I'm not going to argue with that. That's just a perfect answer. Congratulations, Dills. You win.
But yeah, I think Shaw is probably one of the kind of flex cards in this deck, but I think you pretty much have to have Rexar, I think. And obviously you have to have Katharina because you can't recruit without Katharina. So
Yeah. Rexar just, I mean, you technically don't have to, but Rexar does for you is so freaking important in this deck because it just gives you another way to win the game if your recruit thing doesn't pan out.
Yeah, it shores up your late game and means that you're going to be able to go long against, because there are still, I mean, as much as I talk about how I'm seeing so much Paladin, there's still a lot of decks that are playing like kind of a control late game type of a style. They're pretty popular right now, so Rexar helps shore up those matchups quite a lot.
Yeah, where I think this deck gets expensive is from Witchwood Grizzly on, with the exception of Death Stalker Rexar. I don't think there's much you can replace. You need the Grizzlies, you need the King Crush, you need the 1 Silver Vanguard. It's a common though, because that's what's empowering
I
the
crafted
Oozling.
both Houndmaster Shaw and King Crush for this deck.
Everything
like,
from Grizzly down is like, that's the core of the deck, right? If you're looking at it. The top part is what you could mess with, and you can decide, like, do I want to be secrets or do I want to be, these taunty things?
Yeah, I ended up crafting Shaw as well, and Katharina. I hadn't cracked a Katharina yet, but I've been sitting on King Crush since I think I had King Crush in both beta and after launch.
I was really glad that I finally had a reason to craft him, because I think he was one of the last original vanilla legendaries that I didn't actually have, which is funny because I've been playing Hunter forever, but I just was never lucky enough to open him. So now I have him, and I'm happy because he has one of the best entrance animations ever.
Oh, it's so good. So good. The Jurassic Park fan in me is just gleeful.
Yep.
But overall, yeah, it's just fun. It just feels so gnarly when the Oozlings go off.
It is super fun for sure. And it's got some fairly decent matchups, like against mages and druids. It's really just the odd paladin flood style, and that really starts to overrun it. You don't have a great matchup against even warlock either, but
I'm actually looking them up right now. It does feel to me though like you can just win any game, because even if you fall way behind, and then all of a sudden you're just dumping bomb after bomb on the board, and like you just the come from behind potential is insane with this deck.
The only one I think is really tough for it is even Shaman. Looking at the stats, that it seems to.
Well, Odd Paladin looks like it's bad. Yeah, so anybody who floods the board against you, because you don't have explosive trap, you don't have Unleash the Hounds, you don't have any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Odd Paladin and Odd Rogue are both unfavored, but they're close. The even Shaman is the one that seems to be really running away with the matchup. But go give it a shot. We've got a link to the deck list we're talking about in the show notes, which you can find by going to amove.tv/TAC and finding the post for the most recent episode. Before we move on to crazy game stories, we have another sponsor to thank today. Harry's. They are back to sponsor this episode of The Angry Chicken. We are all converts here. You have heard me talk about shaving my nasty neck beard. You've heard Jocelyn talking about using kind of masculine smelling shave gel because she enjoys the razor so much. And of course, you've heard about Dill's shaving his shoulders. But they
Gotta
are
keep those shoulders beach friendly. It's summertime.
It is summertime. Don't you live in Austin?
Yeah, but we have rivers and lakes and stuff.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That makes
Beachy areas.
beachy areas.
People go outside.
It's also just hot, so sleeves are optional. So you got to keep those shoulders looking respectable. But they are back
Yeah,
to
for me, they're very optional. I try not to have sleeves as often as possible.
My favorite thing about following Dills on Instagram is seeing his wide collection of sleeveless shirts, because it seems like every weekend you're out golfing in some new ridiculous tank top.
Yeah, I mean, I just love America. I love my Harry's razors keeping my shoulders shaved as well.
Yeah, so they are back to sponsor this episode. You can go to harrys.com/TAC and try them out for yourself, because they are still offering that trial set. It's a $13 value you can get when you sign up over at harrys.com/TAC. You'll get their weighted ergonomic razor handle, one of their cartridges, which has 5 precision engineered blades, plus a lubricating strip, plus a trimmer blade, for accuracy. That rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover so you can take it with you. Again, you can redeem your trial set by visiting harrys.com/TAC. Go check it out. We thank them for continuing to support the Angry Chicken, and we thank you for using that URL and supporting the podcast. Now, let's see what crazy game stories our listeners have in store for us.
Is the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
Send your crazy game stories to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Skrell writes in with a yarn to spin this week and says, "Greetings, podcasters." Wait, that's it? That's all you've got for us, Skrell? I'm sorry. Find another story.
We're just podcasters to you, Skrill.
Just podcasters.
We're not
We are
ferocious, clucking, whatever. I can't
cockerels.
come up with them the way they
Cockerels. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, exactly. Is that all we are to you? Anyway, Skrell continues. My crazy game story begins with Kingsbane and ends with sadness. Okay.
As most Kingsbane games do.
Yeah. Yep. Anyways, Skrull says, I was playing my one true Hearthstone love, Kingsbane Rogue. I saw I was against Warlock. Cool, I think to myself. I can actually beat Cube Block most of the time. If only I had Gnome, what would occur next?
Good one.
I have not seen a repeat of this in hundreds of games with Kingsbane, dozens of which have been against Cube Block. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the new Kingsbane tech, second only to freeze spells. Play Gnome Veratu and hope for the best. Here, help me God, if this is just a story about how Gnome Veratu discarded a Kingsbane, I'm banning Skrell from ever emailing us again. My hand was decent. I mulliganed to try to get Kingsbane or Rummaging Kobold, but I got Cold Light Oracle and some decent buffs. That's usually enough. I'll dig to a combo piece by turn 3, I think to myself optimistically. Then, my opponent plays Gnome Feratu on turn 2, probably thinking of getting some incremental fatigue advantage. But instead, they rip the top card off of my deck, which happened to be my Kingsbane. This better get more interesting. Which is now banished into non-existence with no way to retrieve it. My opponent
So judgmental, Garrett.
Gnome Feratu getting rid of your main plan is not a crazy game story. It's just Gnome Feratu.
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's crazy what happened to you, dude.
My opponent emotes WoW twice, and for once, despite my usual hatred of emotes, I have to agree with them and laugh while I emote a non-sarcastic well played. All right, he's saving it. I hate conceding unless I'm dead on board, so I play out the rest of the game, which was actually decently close. But he ended up winning with the long game, which was to be expected. So
I'm
now,
trying to figure out how it could ever be close without Kingsbane. What do you even do once that card is gone? It's even worse than losing like a Hadronox and a Taunt Druid, because at least you're still playing like minions. He's playing stuff that just buffs his dagger now that doesn't stick around.
if the last 6 cards are 2 cubes, 2 and 4 demons,
Sure.
That's how it's. I mean, the
Like,
cube
but,
block
I
could-
mean, he's correct here. Like this is a deck that literally revolves around one single card.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
More than almost any other deck. And there are plenty of decks that have revolved around one card, but Kingsbane, no.
Yep.
You need the Kingsbane.
Anyway, Skrull really sticks a landing and says, so now when I'm playing Kingsbane, I affectionately refer to Q-Block as Gnome Land Security. Sorry for the pun. Love your show. Keep up the great content. Don't apologize for the pun. Just apologize for the story.
No, the pun is literally the reason why the story got it.
Honestly,
only gnome what was going to happen next.
That's what I was going to say. Skrull, your first pun was the best.
Yeah.
Because at first I was just like, is that a type? No, it's not, you genius. So
yeah, you guys will always win me over with puns, just so you know. All crazy game stories from now on are going to be written in those like long, rambly, like mystery styles full of puns. Because you guys know those are the two things I love.
Yep. It's just going to be, I curved out and played Ragnaros, so I was running my opponent ragged. It's just like, it's a Curbstone story. I want to read this. Oh, a rag pun. I'm in. We're done. We're good. It makes the show. I hope. I'm having fun with you, Skrull. Keep your crazy game stories coming. tacpodcast@gmail.com and keep them punny. Before we move on to emails, let's thank our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. We really appreciate all of our patrons. We have two new patrons to thank this week. Thank you to Christopher B. and Bill T. Thank you very much for supporting. If you like the Angry Chicken, if you dig what we're doing here, maybe you just find a lot of enjoyment in me being like, really, the Kingsbane, that's it. You can go and support the show and vote with your dollars by going to patreon.com/TAC. We really do appreciate the support, everyone. It's this is what we do for a living now. So thank you for the support. Now let's wrap it up. We got some emails to take.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to the same place, tacpodcast@gmail.com. I'm going to go out of order of how it's listed here because while I'm just, a little grumpy, Jocelyn, I'd like you to start with your email.
Oh, all right then. This email comes to us from Pie Master, who says, "Hi guys, podcasters and guys."
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, the intros to these emails are really tame this week.
Are we going to get like a hello, sir and madam? Is that what's coming next week?
To whom it may concern.
It's casual week here on the email section of this podcast.
To my dearest Angry Chicken. It was a long, hot summer when I wrote you this email.
Oh my god. All right, so Pie Master says, last week Garrett voiced the opinion, as he has in the past, that Arena is simply not competitive, and it's easy to see why people have this opinion. All the major Hearthstone tournaments are constructed only, and there's no in-game facility or easy out-of-game facility to have anything approaching an Arena tournament. The irony is that for the vast majority of players, it's actually the most competitive format in the game. An extremely tiny number of Hearthstone players have both the skill and the time to, an extremely tiny number of Hearthstone players have both the skill and the time to play in the HCT Tour. Everyone can be quote-unquote competitive on ladder, but there's very little reward for doing so. One golden epic if you can get to rank 5, and nothing beyond that except HCT points, and they're useless unless you can get a lot of them. Arena, on the other hand, rewards you with tangible resources, gold and dust, and gives you a big incentive to improve with more rewards every step of the way. Average 3 wins, which anyone should be able to do in time, and you win back more than your entry fee. Average 5 wins, and you can play the rest of the game free to play. Average 6 wins, and you are effectively infinite. Average 7 wins, you are hard infinite. Don't understand the difference between effectively and hard, but average 7.5, and you can compete for the leaderboard. Average 8, and you can compete for the top of the leaderboard. Of course, you can never actually win actual money in the arena, but as previously discussed, you can't in any other mode unless you are in the super elite bracket. It's actually the constructed players who should be complaining that their format is not competitive. Smiley face. So I'm guessing since you wanted this to go first, Garrett, you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I do. First, I would just like to lead with, come on, Pie Master, you know what I was talking about. And 2, I would say you're absolutely right if you replace every single instance of the word competitive in your email with rewarding. Arena is rewarding. Arena is not competitive.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the maybe disconnect from what you said. I think when you were talking about it being competitive, you meant like where you have an actual like ladder and compete in what Hearthstone considers to be their championship and stuff like that, right?
What Hearthstone considers to be competitive, which
Right.
is,
Yeah.
tournaments. It's not,
Yeah.
and to like get really nitpicky about your email, Pie Master, you say it's difficult to create a arena tournament. I would say no, it is impossible to create an arena tournament. Some have tried. It's not real arena because you can't build a deck with more than 2 instances of a non-legendary card.
Yeah. So I will say this though, arena is competitive just in a different way than it's not competitive in a way that like a person can become an arena pro, right? You can become a constructed pro and you can play in a bunch of tournaments and all that kind of stuff. I will say this though, if you want to play a tournament in Hearthstone and you are not going to a tournament, arena is essentially a Swiss tournament. That's just happening a whole bunch of players who are not necessarily tied to like a single bracket, right?
Which
so
is
I mean,
probably
there is
why
that.
we're seeing like in tournament mode, Swiss is going to be supportive because it's basically already in the game already in the coding
Sure.
that they've done for arena.
Yeah, like, and they've already done like Heroic Tavern Brawl and all that kind of stuff, where it still kind of uses that same format. So yeah, it's competitive in a different way, but like that's again, yeah, like Garrett said, that's not the point he was making. The point he was making was that it's just there isn't like a path to go down as an arena pro, a limited pro, if you would.
Yeah,
like
I
some
mean,
other game.
what's the best you're really hoping for as a professional arena player? It's becoming a popular arena streamer and making a living that way. There's no other way. You mentioned the leaderboard. What does the leaderboard actually get you? Nothing.
I don't think it gets
Your
you anything.
name
Your name on the
list.
website.
Yeah. And then an accolade that you can use to pump up your stream.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's it. So I just want more, which that's
Sure.
what I'm getting. I see what you're saying, Dills. But yeah, when I talk competitive, I'm talking like esports. I'm talking competition.
You're talking HCT.
Yeah, necessarily. I mean, we don't need to call it that. We could rename it. But yeah, like Hearthstone esports, a arena tournament, a best of X.
It would be really cool if they maybe didn't call I think they're like Hearthstone competitive points now. So it would be really interesting if you could get Hearthstone competitive points for like being on the arena leaderboard or being like doing well on the wild legend ladder, because then like you may not necessarily, or even if they gave like applied the same sort of thing, because I'm thinking what really makes it interesting and fun to accumulate HCT points other than actually like trying to win HCT is the fact that they now have the Hearthstone Masters program. And I feel like you can master Hearthstone in more ways than just standard constructed. It would be really cool if there was some sort of monetary reward. They might have to tweak it a little bit because obviously a lot of the rewards for being in the Masters program are things like entry into the seasonal playoffs and tournaments and stuff. So they might have to tweak it a little bit. But if there was some sort of like Hearthstone Arena Masters program or Hearthstone Wild Masters program, I think that would be really cool and rewarding to actually like monetarily reward the best players in all modes.
Yeah,
sure.
I find that
super cool.
really cool too. And it's been a while, but Dills, you used to talk about this pretty often, which was like a all-around Hearthstone champion at the end of the year. You know?
Yeah. Like it'd be super cool if they had like similar to like the Magic. What do they call it? The Magic,
the Pro Tour,
like Grand Prix, right?
Oh, Grand
the
Prix,
ones that are put on by Wizards of the Coast, right? They'll have like somebody who wins it by they have to play a limited and then they have to play a constructed format and whatever, and that's how they kind of like pare down the field, and then your winner is kind of like an overall winner, right? And it's super cool, and I would love to see them do something like that in Hearthstone. Because having to apply all the skills, like that's like someone like Chalky proved that he could do it, right? Because he just like steps into any format and then just crushes everybody. And we don't have anything like that here in current version Hearthstone. So
yeah, it would be really cool to see them. I mean, we talk a lot about how they don't really support Wild nearly as much as they support Standard, and I would throw Arena in the same bucket as Wild because they're like the only format right now in Hearthstone that's actually actively monetarily supported and is competitive, air quotes, is Standard. And I don't really think that's right. I wish that they would give us a Wild champion and have the same sort of thing that we have with HCT and Standard. I wish we had the same thing in Wild, and if they could actually build a way to do it in Arena, that would be super cool too. I mean, they've got a leaderboard now, they're tracking wins and everything else. Like, give points for that and have a way to compete. And then an extension of that would be what you said, Dills, with the kind of all-around champion. That would be amazing if our actual like HCT champion was the best at Wild, Standard, and Arena, however they decide to choose who that person is and however they decide to have that competition. I would love to see that as our champion, as someone who is just great at Hearthstone, not great at Standard Hearthstone.
Yeah,
Would be cool.
Times two to all of that. That would be great. Now, one point I would want to bring up, I guess I'm arguing against myself and my own desires, is that it would make Arena difficult, especially what's been happening with Arena lately, which I really enjoy, which is they're taking risks, they're changing it up. Now, if Arena was competitive, I don't think we would see as much of that.
Well, you could have like a fun arena mode, and you could have a like standard arena mode, I guess. Like you could have sort of like a tavern brawl, like tavern brawl isn't really competitive in any way, shape, or form. It would be really cool if you could just have an extra button under arena where it's like, do you want to play in standard arena or do you want to play the Caverns of Time event or Taverns of Time or whatever the hell it's called? There could be an event button.
Yeah. I would also be for that.
Well, I talked to Dwakta last week, there's a special episode if anybody didn't catch it, in between the last one and this one. We talked about Arena, and one of the things I brought up was like, other crazy ways to do it, and he was like, well, I think honestly you just want to make another limited format, right? So yeah, you can leave Arena as is, make another limited format that is whatever you want, all kinds of crazy stuff, and then if you opened up Arena as is, as a competitive mode, I think a lot of people would enjoy that and play it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I certainly would.
Brudon writes in. He says, "Greetings, enraged cuckoos." Is that how you spell? I don't know. That's how I'm going to pronounce that. Anyways, just finished my first arena run
Zelda.
during the. What was that?
I said, I think that's what the chickens are called in Zelda.
I think so too. I just feel like
it is. Yeah.
It should be more O's. Whatever.
Cuckoos. I don't know.
Whatever the case is. Just finished my first arena run during the Taverns of Time event. I went 9-3 with a hunter. Good run, Brudon. And I'm really digging it. These new cards got me thinking we are due for an expansion announcement in the next month or so. What if Blizzard pulled a fast one and announced the next expansion in Caverns of Time, and we've already been playing with 28 of the cards? That would be insane, Brudon, and I hope you're right. Some of the new cards are probably way too OP for constructed, so I doubt this will happen, but would be really cool to see something like that in the future. My favorite expansion launch event to date is still back when Goblins vs. Gnomes launched with new cards added to the arena a few days early. Do you think Blizzard will ever do an event like that again, or explore different ways to introduce new cards? God, I hope so, because I'm with you, Brudon. I am so with you. We are kin. This is the best event they ever did.
I think
it was super cool.
Yeah, we both agree. Like,
yeah, it was super cool, and it was kind of sad that it just never happened again after that, because I remember like that day when I found out that suddenly all the cards were available in Arena, and I can't remember where I was, but I just like immediately stopped what I was doing and like pulled my phone out and started drafting, because I just wanted to play with the new cards so bad. And
I played Arena for like 2 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
I do agree that these cards are probably not going to be in the next expansion, but maybe there are cards that are similarly worded, but
they could be testing effects for sure.
Sure, yeah, but just aren't as OP as these ones are. Although playing with them a lot, I don't know how many of them are actually OP. They are really good. Probably something like, the legendaries would be considered OP. Was it Mirazon?
But even then, that's two of them, right? Yeah, Mirazon and Chromie.
Yeah. And I mean, even those cards, like I've had people Mirazon on me, and I still beat them, right? Because even though they're drawing 3 cards a turn, I'm still able to kind of like fight back, and plus I get to think about my turn, and they don't. But it's, I don't know, like I think that these cards aren't that crazy anymore now that I've played a bunch of games with them.
I mean, there's probably combos in a constructed environment we're not thinking of.
I think that's the issue, right? Is that some of the cards would work really, really well with other cards specifically, and when you put them in your deck on purpose rather than randomly get them.
Yeah.
Like effects like putting a cheaper spell on top of your deck. If you do that and then plus have like just draw card effects, like you can make, cheap Pyroblast and then immediately drop like a Novice Engineer and draw them. So
Could be a little bit too powerful.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I think that I looked at those cards and thought they were disgusting, and playing with them, I'm like, they're not that crazy. They're actually okay.
Yeah. We would need to play around with them in a constructed environment, though, to really have a good idea.
To really know. Yeah. Absolutely.
So we could, because there's got to be just bonkers combos out there with very specific cards.
The one where you get to redraw your entire hand, I think, is the one that would really scare me, because there is a lot of effects that go super well with that. I don't know if you guys saw if you still watch like Trolldan videos and stuff, but I saw one where I think it was Shady Bunny. He got the Dollmaster Dorian because he had the Shaman card that evolves the card, when you play a minion. No. It's the minion. That's the special arena minion. When you summon a minion, it evolves it, right? So it evolved into Dollmaster Dorian, some minion, and then he played the refresh your hand thing. And Dollmaster Dorian, anytime you draw a minion, it puts a 1/1 copy of it on the board, but it's summoning like a 1/1 copy of something that costs like 5. And then because the other minion was there, every time it summoned a 1/1, it evolved it 2 mana cost higher. So at the end of the turn, you had like a full board of like evolved like 7 drops or whatever. It was insane.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Those are the type of things that like you could do with a lot more regularity in a constructed environment, and that would be terrifying. Unless everyone
Dollmaster Dorian just with that card is insane if you think about it, because you literally just throw your hand away and then draw, and it's draw. So every single minion you would draw would get a 1/1 copy onto the board.
Yep. And now your opponent knows what's in your hand, but who cares, because there's a bunch of 1/1 copies of them on the board.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so nasty. Yeah, I've already mentioned it multiple times this episode, but I'm really holding out hope for some type of put this card on the top of your deck effect.
Seems like where we're headed.
I was gonna say, there's some of, like you mentioned, the evolving, like that's already in the game, but then there's stuff like Chromie pulling specifically from the Hall of Fame group of cards, and there's the, putting the thing on the top of your deck and reducing costs. So it does almost seem like they are testing mechanics like that. So I'd be surprised if we didn't see some, at least mechanics from this arena set making their way into possibly not the set that we're going to get in the summer, but maybe the one that we're going to get in the fall.
Yeah. And I would just like to reiterate before we move on to our final email. Team 5, if you're listening, the GVG preview event that happened in Arena is the coolest event you ever did. Do it again, please. Not for GVG, but for the next expansion. Although we know it, go for it. Do a GVG event. That sounds fun.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Will writes, hello, irritated avians. All right, now this is more like it. A bunch of my friends used to play Hearthstone when it was new, but of all of us, I'm the only one who still plays. When asked why they don't play anymore, they tend to give me the same answer. The game used to be fun, but then it changed too much. Whoa. If my friends are indicative of other lapsed Hearthstone players, it seems people have a meta that they like with decks they like to play, and if that goes away, they lose interest. Do you think it would be cool if Blizzard added some sort of time travel mode to give players a taste of old metas again? Could be a rotating stable of formats like Tavern Brawl, where perhaps each week they resurrect an old meta with only certain expansions allowed and with nerfs reverted. They sort of did this with that one Tavern Brawl, but I think this could be a distinct mode. Thoughts? I remember the Tavern Brawl he's talking about. They had, you were playing like old championship decks and stuff, like tournament decks from previous days, and they had unnerfed versions of cards and all that
it was
stuff.
like you chose your class, and then that had a specific deck.
You were playing like Ostkaka, Miracle Rogue, and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. I think what's going on here, though, is what has to happen eventually, and that is multiple formats a la Magic, right? Where you can play, do you like Standard? Do you like Modern? Do you like Vintage? Do you like Legacy? Do you like, and it's basically kind of like which sets are allowed type of thing.
You can have one
at a certain point, we're going to have so many friggin' cards that we could have, Wild, which is just everything. We could have Modern, which is maybe 3 years worth of expansions instead of just 2 years. You can have Standard, which is just your 2 years. I think eventually that will happen. This is one of the reasons why I really want a sandbox mode, because it allows the community to start creating these formats, right? And right now we're beholden to Blizzard to eventually give us this kind of stuff. But
I feel like this would probably be, and I'm kicking myself for saying this because I'm sorry, all software devs out there, but I feel like this would be easy enough if you could just like.
I'm sure it's just like a button that you push, right?
Well, no, but I mean, like, I'm thinking, like, couldn't you just say, like, I want to play patch blah blah blah, like, and just have the game revert to that? Because that would take all the nerfs back. That would make the sets that were available at that time would be
if you read up on Classic WoW, it's not as simple.
And Classic WoW is obviously the one that comes to mind, right? With them trying to go back to 1.1.2, but
I'm just thinking of bugs that come in when patches do come in. I'm just like, I don't think that's easy at all. Doesn't mean I don't want it. I do, but I don't know. I think we may have just given someone over at Team 5 an actual heart attack. Just be like, what are you talking?
Sorry, I'm really sorry. Like, as soon before I even said it, I said I was sorry.
Yeah.
It's just so. I think the way to really do it is just to have, when you click play, like right now you literally toggle wild standard, right? Mm-hmm. So that could just be a drop down, and it could have multiple formats in it, and you kind of decide which one you like to play. And I do think this is something that eventually will kind of be forced upon the game, just based on the sheer amount of cards that are going to exist, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's a really interesting idea too, because I don't know if you guys have been watching that History of Hearthstone tournament, but it's actually really cool and really fun to see, like, just when you use certain sets, because like right now, like with Wild, it's basically like either everything or you're playing Standard, which is just the most recent 2 years. But like Wild doesn't let you say, I only want to play with GVG, right? Which was a really interesting time. And so, but they're just like, they keep stacking all the new ones on top. So it's really interesting to see, like, okay, what if we just forget the last 2 years of Hearthstone and play all the old stuff, like up to Grand Tournament or something? Like, those times in Hearthstone were really cool and fun and interesting. And it would be really neat to be able to go back and play that stuff, because it's not as easy as just saying like, oh, well, you want to play old stuff, play Wild, like, because it's not the same, because there's all the new stuff in there too. So it'd be cool if there was a way that you could choose the meta you wanted to play, for sure.
I agree. I think that in my mind, the thing that sticks out as probably the most problematic is reverting nerfs. I mean, they've done it in a Tavern Brawl, right? So it's not completely off the table. But if we're talking about like permanent modes that you can go in and enjoy, I would assume that would be a bit of a sticking point. And I think it's surprisingly analogous to the Classic WoW discussion, because they finally have announced what patch it's going to be for Classic WoW. But since its announcement, that's basically been the conversation, is what version of vanilla WoW. So if we're saying, like, I want to go play in the Year of the Mammoth, well, what version of the Year of the Mammoth? I want to go play in the Year of the Kraken. Well, what version of the Year of the Kraken? We talking pre or post Yogg-Nerf Year of the Kraken? And Hearthstone prides itself on being very clean, very beautifully designed, and easy to understand. And then I start to come over to Team 5's side of the fence just a little bit when we start to go down that road.
Well, that was always the problem with the Classic WoW conversation, right? Is like, oh, well, I want Classic WoW, but then also would probably like to have some of the quality of life things and blah, blah, blah. Or like, my Classic WoW is right at the start. Well, my Classic WoW is after AQ opened and blah, 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 blah. Like,
I'm sorry, nobody wants to actually sit there and swing a sword to rank up your sword skill. I'm sorry,
So yeah, and I think, but you're right, Garrett, like that whole idea and mentality definitely applies to Hearthstone as well, because they're, even if you look at like choosing, we just finished talking about how much the nerfs impacted Witchwood. And I feel like there's a lot of instances in Hearthstone's past where it's like you can't even necessarily go by expansion launches, because nerfs that came a little bit later might have totally changed the game. So hence my patch comment. Which patch do you want to play? But it's a really important consideration, I think, in this conversation. So and I would also add, like me saying, one person's idea of what Year of the Kraken might be is different than some other person's. To anyone from Team 5 listening who are like, oh, wait, so does that mean you do agree with us that someone's idea of a tournament mode is different from someone else's? And I answer, no. We need bans. Don't throw that back at me. Yeah, we're not talking about tournament mode right now. We're talking about metas.
Right. We need bans. Everyone agrees we need bans. It's a no-brainer that we need bans. Don't talk to me.
So, last thing I want to address about this guy's email is I find that incredibly weird that people don't like a card game changing. I guess it's just me who I can't stand, like, I get it. Like when I go to Wild and someone's playing Big Priest, I'm like, I guess you just love this Big Priest play style. Like this is why I like standard, I think, over everything. Wild, I like going in and doing crazy stuff, but standard I like more than anything because it's like, yeah, I can't do the same thing over and over again. That just
it's always
kills all
changing.
my interest. But it's funny. Like we talked about this in on the instance with World of Warcraft forever, where when like they would overhaul talent systems and stuff, tons of people would leave the game and be like, I don't want to learn how to mage again. And for me, those are like the most exciting times of the game where, I get to kind of retool and reshape like how I play certain classes, right? Like I remember hunting got real weird after we lost mana and went to fucking focus or whatever.
It's still weird, man. My first character was a hunter and I just dusted him off and I'm still like, where's my mana?
Yeah.
Where's my arrows?
By the way, that's probably the first time I ever sworn on tack because I was so frustrated with that change at the time. But ultimately, it was a good thing for me because it completely changed how I played the game, right? And I enjoy that kind of stuff. So
On
I would encourage people to try to embrace it when things change. I know that it's just that they have a different mentality than me or whatever, but sometimes you find a lot of fun on the other side when you kind of embrace and push through some stuff.
Yeah. I would say on the flip side, though, isn't there an old deck or an old build that you miss and you would like to go back and enjoy the heyday of? Because for me, it's like old GVG mid-range Paladin. I miss Muster.
Sure.
I miss Shield Bot. Like, that's the deck.
Pre-secrets mid-range Paladin.
Exactly.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. That was the first time I ever made an honest-to-God push up the ladder. Like, so that deck is very near and dear to my heart, and it sucks in Wild now. Like, it's not even good over there.
You know what I really liked? Oil Rogue, actually.
Oil Rogue,
that's one. But you know what I
feel
really
like
liked?
Oil Rogue is one that I would really want to go and play because now
Sure.
that I've started roguing a little bit more, like at the time, I was just like, I'm never going to be able to play this deck. I cannot figure it out. I'm bad at rogue, and it's not happening. So I would love to go back in time and give that a try now that I've started to understand the class a little bit more.
I would say I really liked Undertaker Priest. I hated Undertaker Hunter, and I remember I talking about they could have made Undertaker just a Priest card and it would have been okay. But as a neutral card, it sucked because it was so OP in Hunter, right? But I really enjoyed how it opened up a new Priest playstyle that had not existed before that, right?
For me, it'd be Mech Mage. I miss Mech Mage.
Ooh. Well, you can still do that in WoW. That is actually a deck in WoW.
It's still viable?
People play that deck in WoW, yes.
I can't wait to go back and not draw any mechs again. You remember
I remember
this.
how frustrated you used to get at that deck, and I tried to show you how to play, and it was just like, wow, I didn't know a person could draw this poorly, this consistently.
We played like 7 games.
We did.
And
It
I
was
lost
like, guys,
all 7 of them.
seriously, it was so bad.
I never drew a mech. Or I would draw one, and I would never draw another one to synergize with it.
Yeah.
It was absolutely bonkers. But, yeah. God, I don't think there's ever been an archetype that was as successful that I was more like, the game hates me, clearly. That was Mech Mage.
Yeah, for me, it's the 2 Plosions and the Juggles. They always go to the wrong place.
It was that and Crackle. Good old Crackle. Always hitting for the lowest possible number. But anyways, I would just like to say, emailers, y'all were on point this week. These were some really fun conversations. Thank you.
Some of them were actually holdovers from a couple weeks ago because I think we haven't been able to do emails really in the last couple of weeks. So
We're going long. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have a slow news week where we can get through some of these emails.
Yeah, have a conversation with all of you. Anyways, keep the conversation rolling. tacpodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can send in your emails and your crazy game stories. Send them there. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. We're done. That's it. Thank you again to our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. Again, the 3 of us, we create content for a living, and the Angry Chicken Patreon is one of the single largest sources of income for us. So if you would like to support the show, whether it's $1, $5, whatever works for you, we very much appreciate it. Patreon.com/TAC. Also, a huge thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H., Sean C., Johnny S., and LVE. Y'all are super nice to us, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. We also have swag available. We've got shirts over at shirts.amove.tv. You can get jobs done emblazoned across your chest in a shirt fashion. If you're going to go get that tattooed, that's on you. You can also get custom etched glassware, pint glasses, wine glasses, and such over at etched.amove.tv. amove.tv. The whole back catalog of episodes is at amove.tv or the Amove TV YouTube. You can follow the show on Twitter at TAC Podcast, and we're live Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. My brain just pooped. At twitch.tv/AmoveTV. Come join us in the live chat. Talk to us live. We sometimes take questions from the chat as they're scrolling by. But around the table, before we go, Dills, where can everybody find all of the other content that you're putting out?
Check out Twitter at Willie Dills and twitch.tv/Willie Dills for my stream where you'll find me playing lots of Hearthstone.
Jocelyn?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays.
I'm Garrett Art on Twitter, amove.tv for all of the other podcasts. I'll promote my solo show, R2T2. I've been talking about E3 for the last 2 weeks. Go and listen to that. It's going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. Good luck in your games. And until next week, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!